Ugly girls should sleep outside. In a corner of a hot spring inn in the countryside, lit by the moonlight, a woman stood shivering from the cold. The lively noise of the lavish banquet barely reached where she was. Um, are you all right? I found myself speaking before I even realized it. I had just stepped out of the warm inn when I saw her from behind. Something about her figure seemed familiar. When she turned around, I gasped. It couldn't be. 10 years ago, when I was a poor college student, she made lunch for me almost every day. She was my first love. But why was she standing out here, trembling? Mr. Coleman told me, ugly girls should sleep outside. What? He said it like a joke, but it was in front of everyone. The tremble in her voice made something snap inside me. I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Coleman. He answered in a drunken slur, and I let my anger speak. Mr. Coleman would come to deeply regret what he had done. My name is Ralph King. I've spent the past 2 years working in Singapore as an aviation consultant. To be honest, working overseas turned out to be more difficult than I had expected. More than the language barrier, it was the cultural differences that often left me confused. But today marks the end of that chapter. I'm returning to the main office in Japan. When I landed at the airport, the familiar air on my skin made me let out a deep sigh. From the taxi window, I looked out at the streets I hadn't seen in years. But instead of going straight to the office, I was headed to a hot spring inn in the countryside. I had heard the company was on a retreat, and I decided it would be a good opportunity to surprise everyone. By the time I arrived at the inn, night had already fallen. At the front desk, I was told the employees were having a party in the garden after dinner. Wanting to surprise them, I headed toward the garden. In the dim corner of the garden, I saw a noisy group gathered. As I stepped outside, my eyes caught the figure of a woman standing alone. Her black hair, which reached her shoulders, swayed in the night breeze. She was crouching near the edge of the garden, trembling from the cold. Thinking she might be unwell, I walked closer, and her figure looked familiar. No way. I couldn't help but speak. Is that you, Diane? At the sound of my voice, the woman slowly turned around. There was no doubt about it. It was her. Ralph, is it really you? It had been years since we last saw each other. Her eyes still held the same gentle warmth as they did back then. Her face, illuminated by the moonlight, looked as beautiful as if time had stood still. To meet you here of all places. At my words, Diane gave a soft smile. The moment I saw that expression, memories from 10 years ago came rushing back. Back then, I was a poor college student. My father was a taxi driver, and my mother ran a small general store. We weren't a wealthy family by any means, but my parents worked tirelessly to come up with the money for my tuition. Still, I had 2 younger brothers. With my going to college, our household finances were pushed to the limit. Ralph, I'm so sorry. We just can't afford anymore. I can still hear the apologetic tone in my mother's voice. But I didn't want to give up, because I had held on to a dream since I was a child. I wanted to work in the aviation industry. That desire was largely inspired by my father. He had worked as a fueling technician at a regional airport. The pay was never good, but he took great pride in his work. Even with frequent night shifts and constant financial hardship, he never once complained. Airplanes carry people's lives. My father's eyes always sparkled as he said that to me when I was a child. It might seem like a small task, but each and every one of those tasks helps ensure the safe air travel of thousands, even tens of thousands of people. I still vividly remember the day I went to help him at work. His back, working silently under the blazing sun on the summer asphalt, left a strong impression on me. He looked so cool to me then. But after an accident injured his left leg, he was forced to take early retirement. Since then, he has been working as a taxi driver. His income dropped even further, and my mother started doing side jobs from home. Ralph, I'm sorry. We can't even afford your college tuition properly. My father apologized to me with a heavy heart. but I was proud of the work he did. I vowed to carry on the sincerity and dedication to the aviation industry that I had learned from watching him, and to pursue an even bigger dream. Ground staff and pilots were roles I admired deeply, but I wanted to take my father's passion and grow it into something larger. I wanted to be part of a job that could help the entire aviation industry grow on a global scale. That's when I decided to become an aviation consultant. From then on, I devoured books about aviation. They were about advances in maintenance technology, airline history, and global airport operations. The more I learned, the more I was drawn into this world. But reality was harsh. To become an aviation consultant, I not only needed a specialized college education, but also certification from IATA and a high level of English proficiency. I couldn't ask my family to cover the costs of the exams and courses. So I made a decision. I wouldn't burden the parents who had supported me for so long. I would achieve my dream through my own efforts, no matter what. To save up for college and get into the aviation industry, I started working at a diner in Tokyo. I delivered newspapers in the morning and worked at a restaurant at night. I averaged only 4 hours of sleep a night. Even so, I always made time to read aviation books. Every day, I chased my dream while reading about the industry. "Ralph, good job today." After closing time, Diane would always say that to me. She was the daughter of the company president, the only daughter of the Martin Group, which ran the chain of restaurants known as Martin Diner. And yet, she worked alongside us as a regular part-timer. According to her, she wanted to gain first-hand experience on the ground. "Thank you for staying so late again today. But if you don't head home a bit earlier, you won't have any time left to study, you know? I'll be fine. I'm planning to spend the night at the college library. You're pushing yourself too hard. Here, take this." As she said that, she held out a small lunchbox. I made too much, so I ended up making some for you too. The truth was, she knew that I was struggling financially and could hardly afford proper meals. But she never pointed it out directly, and she just quietly looked out for me. Diane, I feel bad, always receiving things from you like this." "What are you talking about? We're teammates, aren't we?" Her smile always soothed my tired heart. During our breaks, she would listen to me intently. She seemed genuinely interested in the aviation books I talked about. "Ralph, you really know so much. It's impressive." "Not at all. I still have a long way to go. But I'll make it in this industry, no matter what. Yeah, and I'll be cheering you on." I can't even count how many times those words gave me strength. To me, she was both a lifesaver and my first love. "Ralph?" As I sank into those nostalgic memories, Diane's voice pulled me back to reality. In the dim light of the garden, the night wind was chilly, and she was hugging her arms, shivering. "Diane, why are you out here in the cold?" "Today, it's our company retreat." "What? Our, you mean?" "Yes, from Aviation Frontier." "What?" I couldn't help but react to that name. Aviation Frontier is a company known by anyone in the industry. From consulting for airlines to airport operations and aircraft leasing, it's one of the biggest players in the field. In recent years, it had seen rapid growth, especially across Asia. I nearly said something out loud. To think that Diane was now working for the same company as me. Why this company? What about Martin Diner or your father's business? The moment I said it, I regretted it. Her expression stiffened for a brief second, and she looked down. A heavy silence fell between us. "My father's company went bankrupt." Her voice was so soft, it seemed to melt into the night wind. And well, the truth is, I had always admired the aviation industry too. Every time I heard you talk about it, I started to want to work in that world myself. Her eyes, lit faintly by the moonlight, were slightly moist. She was doing her best to stay cheerful and carefully choosing her words, and it hurt to see. I dropped out of college. I've been working multiple part-time jobs while paying off debts. Mr. Coleman, the president here, used to be an acquaintance of my father's, so he reached out to me. I was at a loss for words. The former daughter of a company president was juggling jobs to repay debt. The weight of that reality was so heavy, I didn't know what to say. I see. I hated how all I could offer was such a hollow response. My chest tightened. The girl who once kindly reached out to help me had gone through so much suffering since then. I had to do something to lift the heavy atmosphere, so I tried to change the subject to something lighter, even if just a little. In an awkward voice, I said, "Then I guess we're coworkers now. That makes me happy." "What?" Diane's eyes widened in surprise. "Actually, I've been working overseas for a while. I just got back to Japan today." I had no idea. I really didn't know. Could such a coincidence really happen? While I was overjoyed at this emotional reunion, something seemed off about Diane. Her profile, lit by the moonlight, was turned downward as if she was holding something back. "It's cold, isn't it? Should we go back inside?" I gently suggested, but Diane slowly shook her head. It was as if she didn't want to leave the spot just yet. The truth is, Mr. Coleman." Her voice trailed off. "Mr. Coleman?" he said. "Ugly girls should sleep outside." "What?" He said it like a joke, but it was in front of everyone. Diane's voice trembled. It wasn't just Mr. Coleman's words that had hurt her, and the real pain came from the humiliation of being told that in front of everyone. "That really happened?" "Yes. Everyone heard it." "I understand. Please wait here for a moment." I immediately took out my phone and called our president, Seth Coleman. A drunken voice answered the call. "Hello, this is Seth." "This is Ralph." "Huh?" He must have picked up without checking who was calling. His voice, dopey and unfocused at first, quickly sharpened after a throat-clearing cough. "You're back from Singapore already?" "Yes. I heard about the company trip and just arrived at the inn. Could you come to the garden entrance?" Mr. Coleman mumbled something unintelligible and hung up. Not even half a minute later, he came rushing over, out of breath. He looked from me to Diane, and his face tensed up. "I heard she was forced out by you, Mr. Coleman. Would you mind explaining?" My voice was colder than usual. "Oh, that. It was just a joke, you know. Haha." He tried to laugh it off awkwardly. "Mr. Coleman." I stepped forward. "Even as a joke, this kind of behavior is unacceptable. She is a valued employee. I have serious concerns about someone who would demean their own staff being allowed to remain as company president." "No, I was just." "Still trying to make excuses?" "I sincerely apologize." "You're apologizing to the wrong person." As I said that, Mr. Coleman turned toward Diane and bowed deeply. "I'm sorry." "All right." Diane nodded quietly. She clearly didn't want to engage with him any more than necessary. She stepped back quietly after accepting the apology. "From now on, I'll be keeping a close eye on how you conduct yourself, Mr. Coleman. You do well to remember that." "Yes, of course. You may return now." With my permission, Mr. Coleman turned and hurried away as if trying to escape. Diane looked up at me, puzzled. "What just happened? Why would Mr. Coleman act that way toward you?" "Actually, I'm the chairman of Aviation Frontier." Her face, lit by the moonlight, slowly filled with surprise. "What? The chairman? But what about Mr. Coleman?" "He's the company president. I've mostly been handling operations overseas, so I left the Japan side of things to him." The wind had grown colder. Seeing Diane's shoulders tremble slightly, I took off my jacket and gently placed it around her. "So that dream of yours from back then?" "Yes. I managed to make it come true. After graduating, I worked at an aviation firm, gained experience, and then used what I learned and the connections I built to start my own company." "I see. That's really amazing, Ralph." "I remember how your eyes used to shine when you talked about the aviation industry. And now, you've really made that dream come true, to build such a successful company. I really admire you." "Not at all. I owe it to you, Diane." "What?" "Back then, if you hadn't made those lunches for me every day, there's no way I could have managed both work and study. Without your encouragement, I'm sure I would have given up somewhere along the way. Her eyes shimmered in the moonlight. Ralph. The wind passed quietly between us. In the distance, the sounds of the banquet still echoed through the garden. But here in this one corner, there was an unusual stillness. That night, Diane and I reminisced about the past. She was still just as humble, brushing off her hardships with a light laugh. Those 2 days at the hot spring retreat felt like a dream. The reunion under the moonlight, the night spent sharing memories, and the sightseeing the next day. Just seeing Diane's smile was enough to sweep away the exhaustion from my overseas work. But peaceful moments like that never last forever. The problems within the company still remained unresolved. Then came Monday, when I returned to the main office. I immediately called an executive meeting. Now then, please give us a detailed explanation of the situation in Japan over the past 2 years. Mr. Coleman nervously flipped through his documents. On paper, the numbers looked good. Sales were climbing steadily, and profits had exceeded projections. But what I had seen with my own eyes told a different story. The turnover rate is far too high. Excuse me? But compared to the industry average. It's not just about numbers. I spoke calmly. This, more than anything, was why I had returned to Japan. Talented people are leaving one after another. This is a fundamental threat to the company's future. The conference room fell silent. The overseas projects have now settled down. So, from here on out, I will be directly involved in managing the Japan side of operations. Later today, we'll be conducting an internal survey on working conditions. Mr. Coleman's face turned pale. It had been a mistake to leave everything in his hands. Now it was my responsibility to correct that and improve our internal environment. That afternoon, I visited Diane's desk. The moment I stepped onto the floor, I could feel the eyes of those around me. That secretary's slacking off again. Well, she got hired through connections. What do you expect? The whispers of the employees tangled around me like spider webs. Her desk was piled high with work, including tasks that clearly belonged to other secretaries. It was obvious they were offloading their work onto her. I heard from Mr. Coleman about the kind of duties you've been assigned. Yes, I've been assisting him as his secretary in various ways. Her voice trembled. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, signs of fatigue she could no longer hide. She must have been shouldering it all alone, unable to talk to anyone. Diane, did you ever take the secretary certification exam? No, but I was told it was fine. At first, I was told I'd be assigned to the sales department when I joined. Her voice grew quieter. At our company, we require an intermediate-level secretary certification or higher for secretarial positions. It seemed her placement had nothing to do with her abilities, and it had been based on appearance. Mr. Coleman, being an old acquaintance of her father, had brought her in and immediately appointed her as his secretary. That must have been the source of the resentment she now faced. Mr. Coleman had clearly been using his position as he pleased. I understand. Starting today, you'll be reassigned. You'll join the sales department as a new recruit and start from the basics. What? But I. The cold stares of those around her all turned toward us at once. Even so, I continued in a calm voice. Show us your true ability, Diane. No more being forced to take on someone else's responsibilities. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. Really? Is that okay? Of course. That's what you signed up for, isn't it? At my words, she nodded, her gaze clear and unwavering. Thank you. I'll give it my all. A month later, Diane's desk was now stacked with project files one after another. Diane, this proposal is amazing. A young employee ran over to her desk, eyes sparkling. It's for the presentation on the new Singapore Airlines route. Your analysis of aviation demand in Asia is spot on. Oh, that came from what I studied back when my father's company went bankrupt. At the time, the aviation industry was going through a major restructuring, especially with the rise of low-cost carriers in Asia, which significantly impacted the route strategies of traditional airlines. As Diane explained enthusiastically, The younger employees listened with serious expressions, clearly engaged. I see. So that's why your demand forecast for the Hong Kong to Singapore route was so detailed. Would it be all right if I tried building a proposal using the same approach as yours? Diane spoke with a vibrant energy that hadn't been there during her time as a secretary. And now, the people around her were finally beginning to recognize her true capabilities. I watched quietly from a distance. Mr. King. Before I knew it, Kenneth, the head of the sales department, had walked up to me. Thank you for moving Diane back to sales. Her knowledge and experience are a huge motivation for the younger staff. This month's numbers are already at 80% of target. You really have an eye for talent, Mr. King. That's all Diane. It's her own ability. True. Still, thank you, Mr. King. He said that as he gave me a deep, respectful bow. Huh? Well, it was really rough under Mr. Coleman. He'd say things like, if you can't hit your numbers this month, maybe you don't need a desk at all. Right, he used to say, if your results aren't good enough, don't even think about going home tonight. And that humiliating sales groveling. It was awful. As more voices poured out, I felt a deep pain in my chest. It seemed Mr. Coleman's tyranny had been worse than I had imagined. But it's different now. We actually analyze properly and set realistic goals. Being able to go home at a decent hour is something I never realized would feel this good. The expressions on the faces of the sales team were truly bright and relaxed. There's still plenty of room for improvement. Let's create an environment where we can grow without burning ourselves out. Everyone nodded firmly at my words. Then, one day, I ended up going out for a drink with Diane at a bar. Ralph, I'd really like to thank you properly. She had invited me after we wrapped up a big project. The place was near the diner we used to go to all the time. Memories from long ago started to well up inside me. Thank you for everything. With a beer in front of her, Diane bowed deeply. The warm lighting in the bar softly illuminated her profile. 10 years had passed, and yet her face, now even more beautiful, left me captivated. For what? For all of it. She kept her eyes on her glass as she spoke. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. She let out a quiet sigh and continued. Ever since I joined the company, people kept saying I only got in through connections, that I wasn't good enough on my own. No matter how hard I worked, that's how they looked at me. We sat by the window, where the moonlight filtered in gently. The air around us felt like a woven thread of old memories. But you, Ralph, you saw me for who I really am. Not with favoritism and not with prejudice. You treated me like any other employee. That meant more than I can say. Thank you. Her voice trembled. I almost reached out my hand to hers. If it were now, maybe I could hold it. But I didn't have the courage yet. No, I should be the one thanking you. I spoke with all the sincerity I had. Our eyes met, and we both searched for words. My heartbeat quickened. Back then, I was really struggling, but you still called me a teammate. You made me lunches and encouraged my dreams. Who I am now is because of you, Diane. Ralph. Her eyes shimmered under the soft bar lights. I felt like I could fall right into them. As I reached for my glass, our fingertips brushed. It lasted only a second, but that warmth shot through me like electricity. Diane quickly pulled her hand back. A gentle blush colored her cheeks. I, too, turned my gaze away without thinking. Our conversation shifted naturally to memories of the past. Stories from the diner and our dreams as students. Warm smiles returned along with those nostalgic moments. Oh, look at the time. Diane glanced at her watch and let out a surprised gasp. By then, the bar had mostly emptied out. We walked side by side along the quiet streets. Every so often, our arms would brush against each other. Each time, my heart would skip a beat. Should we try to catch a taxi? Her voice was slightly higher than usual. She must have sensed the atmosphere between us too. Yeah, let's do that. While we waited for the taxi, the silence between us felt strangely comforting. From now on, It would be good to gradually nurture these feelings. There was no need to rush. After all, this story was still just beginning. There were still hurdles we would have to face together. But even so, I wanted to protect this warmth between us, no matter what. With that resolve in my heart, I looked up at the night sky. A few days later, from the moment I arrived at the office that morning, something felt off. A buzz was spreading across the floor. Some employees turned away quickly as soon as they saw me. It was obvious the usual atmosphere had changed. Mr. King, Ronald, the head of General Affairs, came rushing over, visibly shaken. "Is something wrong?" Please take a look at this." He handed me a screenshot from the company's internal messaging app. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. Mr. King and Diane spotted on a midnight date. Called it. Switched from Mr. Coleman to Mr. King, huh? Classic ex-heiress, calculating as ever. The real story behind her connections only hiring revealed. The cruel comments went on and on. The attached image was from that night outside the bar. It seemed someone had taken the photo from a distance while we were having a casual conversation, waiting for a taxi. "Where's Diane?" She messaged this morning, saying she wasn't feeling well and would be taking the day off. I quickly pulled out my phone. There was a message from her. "I'm sorry, I need to take a short break." Just one line. But the weight of those words hit me like a punch to the chest. I looked around the office. The way the employees glanced at me as I passed made it feel like they were silently passing judgment on Diane. All the trust she had worked so hard to build was now crumbling in an instant. "Everyone, please gather around." My sudden call left people confused, but they slowly gathered. "I understand that there's a rumor going around." I spoke quietly, but with unwavering conviction. "Diane joined the sales department 6 months ago as a new recruit. As you all know, she has earned the trust of this team through her own ability and hard work. I will not stand by and allow those efforts to be undermined by baseless gossip." The conference room fell into an absolute silence, like the stillness after a storm. It goes without saying that who someone chooses to spend time with in their personal life is their own business. To secretly photograph that, then spread it maliciously, such behavior has no place in our company culture. I paused for a moment, then continued. "When Diane returns, we should all think carefully about the kind of face we want to greet her with." That afternoon, I visited Diane's apartment. There was no answer when I pressed the intercom. "Diane, it's Ralph." After a moment, the door opened just a crack. Her face was pale and completely drained of energy. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying for hours. "I'm sorry for letting you see me like this." "Please, don't worry about that. But because of me, the company, and your reputation." Even in this situation, she was thinking about the company and me. To Diane, whose kindness never wavered no matter the circumstances, I said, "For now, just get some good rest." A few days later, the sudden notification arrived, and an emergency board meeting had been called. The agenda read only, "Important personnel matter." I felt an uneasy knot tighten in my chest. Mr. Coleman's behavior had been strange the past few days, as if he were plotting something behind the scenes. When the board meeting began, Mr. Coleman took his seat with a solemn expression. The usual casual arrogance was gone, replaced with an unnatural seriousness. "There is an urgent matter we must address today." Mr. Coleman began to speak, his voice laced with a sense of righteousness that felt strangely artificial. "It concerns a serious misconduct by Mr. King." A wave of shock spread across the room. "First, it's about an extreme case of favoritism toward a specific employee." He projected Diane's personnel record onto the screen. "Her transfer from secretary to sales. Wasn't that driven by Mr. King's personal feelings?" "Hold on a minute." I raised my voice. Diane's reassignment was a legitimate personnel decision. She was hired as a sales employee to begin with. It was Mr. Coleman who reassigned her as a secretary without following proper procedures. "Incorrect," he said, flashing a smug smile. Here is her official hiring letter as a secretary. Signed and dated. Mr. King, you tampered with the company's staffing for personal reasons. I stared at the document he held up. It was signed by Diane, but I knew instantly that it was forged. Mr. Coleman, this document is. Furthermore, he cut me off and rapidly laid out more materials. They included unexplained expenses from overseas business trips and irregular calculations of late-night overtime pay. They were all documents bearing my signature. What do you say about these instances of misconduct? They're all forged. Every single one. I denied it immediately. But when I looked around the room, I saw doubt beginning to cloud the eyes of the board members. Mr. King. Mr. Coleman stood up. Personal involvement in personnel decisions driven by emotion toward an employee. And now, these cases of financial misconduct. For the future of this company, I propose the dismissal of Mr. King from his position. Mr. Coleman, you. My voice trembled with anger and frustration. It felt as if everything had been orchestrated from the beginning. I would now like to proceed with a vote. Hands raised one after another in agreement. Even board members who had always stood by me raised their hands. With a majority in favor, the motion to dismiss Mr. King is hereby passed. Mr. Coleman's voice rang out, triumphant. This decision is unjust, I said quietly, but with force. It will eventually become clear that all of this has been fabricated. Mr. King, no, you are the former chairman. I strongly suggest you step down quietly, out of respect for everything you've done for us. We'll refrain from involving the authorities. His words now carried the full weight of the company's top authority. That night, in a narrow alley behind a small bar, I sat alone, downing glass after glass of liquor. One more. I pointed at the empty bottle on the counter. Who knew how much I had drunk? My head was cloudy, the lights of the bar blurring in my vision. Unread messages from business contacts piled up on my phone. But I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just kept bringing the glass to my lips, as if trying to escape reality. The truth of my dismissal hadn't even fully sunk in. Everything I had spent over a decade building had collapsed in an instant. And I had been betrayed by the very man I scouted myself. Ralph, you're here. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice from behind me. I turned, and there stood Diane, out of breath. Her hair was slightly disheveled, as if she had been desperately searching for me. Diane. My voice trembled. How pathetic. I never wanted her to see me like this. I've lost count of how many places I checked. I've been looking for you everywhere. She sat down beside me. Her eyes were filled with deep concern. I heard about the board meeting. What Mr. Coleman did was outrageous. Her eyes, as she looked straight at me, shimmered with frustration. Actually, while I was out on leave, one of the juniors from sales emailed me every day. They said, Diane, no one cares about that scandal. Tears welled up in her eyes. Just when I finally felt ready to come back to work, I got a message from that same person, telling me you'd been dismissed. I tried calling you right away, but I couldn't get through, so I started searching for you. Her voice trembled slightly. Everyone in sales believes Mr. Coleman set you up. They're saying it was a wrongful dismissal. Her words filled my chest with heat. I couldn't protect anything. Not the company, not the people. That's not true. Diane's voice rang out, strong and clear. Ralph, you were standing up for us, weren't you? You tried to stop Mr. Coleman's abuse of power. That's why this happened to you, right? Her words made my eyes burn. The emotions I had been trying so hard to hold back began to spill out, little by little. It's already this late? As the staff announced closing time, I tried to stand, but my legs felt unsteady. You can't go home like this. Want to come to my place? My parents' house is just nearby. What? But they'll be happy. I talk about you all the time, you know. She invited me with a familiar, gentle smile. Now, she was the one reaching out to me. Are you sure it's not a bother? Don't be silly. Come on. We walked slowly through the night-lit streets. Diane supported my arm as we walked. What do I do? Starting tomorrow. In response to the words that slipped from my lips, Diane looked straight ahead and answered with quiet determination. Let's fight together. There's no way Mr. Coleman's corruption ends there. We'll uncover everything, one step at a time. Diane, you taught me, remember? Not to give up, to keep working toward your dreams. Her profile, lit by the soft glow of a street lamp, carried a quiet strength. If it's you, I know you'll bounce back. You'll get through this. And we'll take our company back together. Her words filled me with strength. She was right. It wasn't over yet. I would uncover the truth and protect the company and the people who mattered most. Look, over there. Diane pointed toward a traditional Japanese-style house. The porch light glowed warmly, as if welcoming us home. I'm back. Oh, Dad, you're still awake? As she opened the front door, light spilled out from the living room. There sat an older man, his posture slightly hunched. It was Aaron, Diane's father. Welcome home, hum? It's Ralph. Do you remember me? Ah, Ralph. Aaron tried to stand, but stumbled slightly, his body appearing far more weakened than his age alone would suggest. I had met him once, back when I worked part-time at their restaurant. Please don't get up. I'm sorry for coming by so late. No need to apologize. Diane talks about you often, back from when you worked at our diner. She was so happy to see you again. And now you're the chairman of her company, no less. Aaron's voice carried a nostalgic warmth. But Diane, her tone now more somber, spoke quietly. Actually, Dad. She told him everything that had happened that day. Aaron listened closely, and once she finished, he clenched his fists in frustration, as if it had happened to him personally. I'm sorry. In my condition, I can't do anything to help. I can't even connect you with work the way I used to. No, please don't say that. Mr. Coleman is a coward. He only did this because Ralph came back and disrupted his control. Did you say Mr. Coleman? Aaron's voice suddenly changed tone. In a sudden shift from the previously calm atmosphere, the room now carried a sense of tension. Huh? Oh, do you know him? When Diane asked, Aaron let out a long sigh. A shadow of hesitation passed over his face. What is it? There's something I need to tell you both. What Aaron went on to share, a story from his past, left us speechless. I had no idea. So that's what happened. With a wry smile, Aaron changed the subject. After hearing all this, what are you two planning to do? I answered firmly with conviction. I'll expose the truth. Mr. Coleman's corruption. There must be evidence. At those words, Aaron let out a deep sigh, his eyes reflecting a swirl of complicated emotions. Be careful. The business world sometimes harbors darkness deeper than you can imagine. There was a weight behind those words, as if they came from personal experience. Dad. Diane looked at her father with concern. Aaron gently patted his daughter's head. Ralph. He looked at me with steady seriousness. Take care of Diane. I will. I gave a firm nod. A few weeks later, I walked once again through the streets of Tokyo. Strangely, my mind had never felt clearer. Are you really sure about this? I don't want to drag you into anything. What are you talking about? I want to fight for the people at the company too. Diane's voice carried unmistakable resolve. Aaron's story still lingered in the back of my mind, circling like a quiet storm. The main office building came into view. A place I had walked into every day now felt slightly out of reach. Ralph, let's go. Diane gripped my hand tightly. That warmth gave me courage. As we stepped out of the elevator, the floor fell silent. Employees averted their gazes the moment they saw us. We had already arranged the appointment and were soon shown to the conference room. After a few minutes, Mr. Coleman appeared. Well, the former chairman, Mr. King. Still clinging to the company? I thought we were done with you. His voice dripped with mockery. We came here to talk. Humph, the howling of a defeated dog, is it? Mr. Coleman slumped arrogantly into his chair, looking down on us with a smirk. It was clear now that his past reverence, calling me Mr. King, had been nothing but an act. Today, we're here to prove your corruption. Ha! What nonsense are you spouting now? Mr. Coleman burst into loud laughter and walked over to the window. You still don't get it, do you? It's all over. The board voted that there's nothing left to be done. I answered calmly. You planned all this with Vice President Mr. Spencer, didn't you? What? More nonsense. The falsified accounting documents were too sophisticated. There's no way you created them alone. Still, Mr. Coleman continued laughing mockingly. Do you even have proof of this little fantasy? I do. I pulled a sheet of paper from my pocket. An internal system access log. Please, that's just a scrap of paper. At the time these documents were created, you were in a video call with me while I was in Singapore. So what? Mr. Coleman still refused to drop his defiant attitude, but I could hear the slight tremble in his voice. The log shows someone logged in using Mr. Spencer's ID during that exact time frame. For a brief moment, just an instant, Mr. Coleman's expression froze. Using someone else's ID was not only a violation of our company's information security policy, but a serious criminal offense under the Unauthorized Computer Access Act. Ironically, it was the very crimes he had tried to frame me for. The forged documents contained my electronic signature as if I had stolen Mr. Spencer's ID and created them myself. During the board meeting, they used this narrative to justify my dismissal, claiming I abused my authority to access a subordinate's account. You. His voice came out in a low, rolling tone. From behind, I could see his back, tense and rigid as he stood by the window. Access logs include exact timestamps and detailed records of all actions. They now clearly showed that Mr. Coleman had used Mr. Spencer's ID to falsify documents. And that's not all. I pulled out another sheet. This is the access log for our accounting system. It shows that the falsified documents were created using Mr. Spencer's ID. Forgery of official company records in the accounting system falls under the crime of forging private documents with a seal. And submitting them at a board meeting constitutes the use of forged documents, which is a second offense. Unauthorized access to an accounting system that handles company funds is considered a particularly serious crime. Worst of all, I had been falsely accused of embezzling funds based on those forged documents. Embezzlement, forgery, and misuse of authority were the perfect trap. Mr. Coleman slowly turned to face me. There was no longer any sign of confidence in his eyes. With all this evidence, there would be no avoiding criminal prosecution. Corporate law violations, unauthorized access, document forgery and use, and false accusations. Every crime he tried to pin on me was now coming back to him. Damn it! He slammed his fist on the table. The echo of it seemed to shake the entire room. It was as if only now he was beginning to feel the full weight of what he had done. Why? My voice echoed quietly across the room. Why did you go so far to destroy me? If you had a problem, you could have said so. I trusted you with the company. I believed in you, Mr. Coleman, and I wanted you to believe in me, to talk things through, to work through it together. Mr. Coleman glared at me with a bitter expression, his eyes burning with what could only be described as hatred. Revenge. At that word, Diane gasped. Revenge on Mr. King? But why? Her voice trembled. I couldn't understand it either. Sure, Mr. Coleman and I had clashed over management policies, but nothing that would justify this. Humph! Mr. Coleman gave a cold, twisted smile. No, not you. Then, slowly, he turned to Diane. Diane, my revenge is against you. What? Against me? Her voice wavered, caught completely off guard. Mr. Coleman sneered as he spoke. Because of your father, my family was torn apart. His voice now brimmed with hatred. My father, Samuel, worked for the Martin Group for over 20 years. He was there from the very start, pouring his life into that company. He glared at Diane and continued his story. Aaron had no background in the food industry, no experience, no connections. He built that company by taking advantage of my father's knowledge. My father was his right-hand man. He worked himself to the bone, barely sleeping or eating. And then, after one bad quarter, they threw him away like trash, forced him into debt, pressured our affiliated companies to cut him off. He collapsed under the stress, hounded by debt collectors, and our family fell apart. The fury he had carried for years bled into every word. But you grew up as the pampered daughter of the company president. Even after the bankruptcy, you got a job through connections, didn't you? That's not true. Diane raised her voice. I dropped out of college. I worked multiple jobs just to. Shut up! Mr. Coleman's shout echoed through the room. No matter how hard you say you had it, you had somewhere to go back to a warm home. But we didn't. My mother left, and my sister turned to nightlife just to survive. What would someone like you, a spoiled princess, know about that kind of pain? I swore I'd get revenge. I couldn't stand the thought of Aaron's daughter living happily. Mr. Coleman. Diane's voice was filled with sadness. I understand you went through a lot, but to drag Ralph into this, that was the most effective way. Mr. Coleman gave a cold, triumphant laugh. At first, I made you my secretary so I could isolate you, break you mentally. But you didn't break, so I changed tactics. I dragged Mr. King down, took away the only safe place you had left. And just like I thought, after he was dismissed, you were completely alone. Wait, Ralph's dismissal. That was part of your plan too? Oh yes. The board members? Please. Everyone has a weakness. A little money waved in the right direction, and they fold like paper. You bribed the board? The more anger I showed, the more delighted Mr. Coleman seemed. Of course, it didn't cost much, and what you lost in return, well, it was priceless. Mr. Coleman, I spoke in a calm but resolute voice, ready to hit him with the truth. Do you know the real reason the Martin Group went bankrupt? What? For a brief second, Mr. Coleman's expression hardened. Recently, I spoke with Aaron about your father. You knew about him? I know more than you do. More than me? The real reason the Martin Group went bankrupt was because of your father's financial misconduct. What are you talking about? Don't throw baseless lies at me. Mr. Coleman slammed his hand on the desk. If you say another word insulting me or my father, I won't let it slide. I could still frame you, accuse you of fraud, and hand you over to the police. Don't forget, I still control this company. But I continued without hesitation. The misconduct wasn't intentional. It was an outdated accounting practice, which your father followed for years, not realizing it had become illegal. When it was discovered, Aaron took full responsibility to protect him. Don't speak nonsense. It was related to revenue recognition in construction. Based on industry custom, they booked income using fixed percentages, regardless of the actual progress. But that was a clear violation of accounting standards. That's just a technicality in bookkeeping. No booking phantom revenue is accounting fraud. Your father truly believed it was just how things were done. But legal revisions made it undeniably illegal. Aaron knew that, yet he said, I can't let Samuel be remembered as a criminal after everything he's done for this company. Lies. It has to be lies. Mr. Coleman's voice trembled as he spoke. He stood, shaking his head violently, as if trying to erase the truth from his mind. Don't give me this garbage. You don't have any proof. I do. Diane spoke softly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bundle of envelopes. These are? They're letters sent monthly from your father to mine. I've been holding on to them for this day. She gently placed the bundle in front of Mr. Coleman. What is this? His hands began to tremble. There was no mistaking the handwriting, and it was his father's. Each letter was carefully dated, with the most recent one written just last month. He never said a word. With trembling hands, he opened one of the letters, but stopped halfway through, as if afraid to confront the truth it contained. Please read it, Diane said gently. With a long sigh, Mr. Coleman slowly opened the letter. Dear Aaron, once again, I find myself writing to you this month. I will never forget the debt I owe you for taking responsibility for my wrongdoing that day. The letter, which began with those words, went on to share updates and thoughtful wishes for Aaron's health, written with sincere care. No, this can't be. Mr. Coleman's voice wavered as denial clung to his words. But the reality before him was undeniable. My careless decision ruined the company and turned your life upside down, Aaron. I am truly sorry. No matter how much time passes, I cannot escape the weight of my guilt. I think about you every single day. If only I had confessed to my wrongdoing back then. Your kindness, taking all the blame on yourself, still tightens my chest with regret. Even if I wanted to make amends, I'm now bedridden with illness. The only thing I can do is write these letters. And yet, you always write back. You always say, please take care of yourself. Every time, your compassion reminds me just how heavy my sins truly are. His hands began to shake violently as he clutched the letter. One after another, he opened them. Every letter was filled with his father's deep remorse and heartfelt apologies. All the hatred, rage, and desire for revenge slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. What remained was a storm of wordless regret and hollow sorrow. He could no longer speak. 1 week after the confrontation with Mr. Coleman, an emergency shareholders meeting was called. The dismissal of Mr. King was based on an illegitimate process. The Vice President, Mr. Spencer, confessed, his voice trembling as he revealed the truth. One by one, the full extent of the misconduct was laid bare. Even the board members who had been bribed began admitting their roles. We're deeply sorry. Watching them bow their heads deeply, I felt a swirl of complicated emotions. There was anger inside me. But more than that, it was sorrow that weighed heavier. If there had been trust between us, none of this would have happened. I moved to reinstate Mr. King immediately and to remove all involved board members from their positions. The vote was conducted calmly. The result was unanimous approval. That afternoon, I gathered all employees for an emergency assembly. Everyone. The expressions of those gathered were a mix of uncertainty and hope. First, I want to offer a sincere apology. My lack of sound judgment and leadership led to this situation. I am truly sorry. I bowed deeply. The room fell completely silent. But from now on, things will change. Never again will this company be twisted by the will of just one person. When I raised my head, the employees were looking at me with eyes full of focus and intent. Starting today, the walls between departments will be taken down. We'll create an environment where anyone can speak freely. That's the kind of company I want us to become. At those words, I heard quiet sighs of relief throughout the room, as if the pressure built up over the years had finally begun to lift. And we will thoroughly review every unjust personnel decision made in the past. I continued calmly. We'll implement a fair evaluation system based on ability and results. A structure where everyone is assessed on their true merit. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. Hope and renewed purpose gradually filled the space. 1 month later, the company changed at a remarkable pace. Barriers between departments disappeared, and younger employees began speaking up freely. Suggestions like, wouldn't it be more efficient if we did it this way? Or, what if we approached that project like this? Could be heard almost every day. It was a scene unimaginable under Mr. Coleman's leadership. Like plants sprouting naturally from the earth, the transformation felt organic and full of life. Then one day, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Hello, this is Ralph. It's been a while. This is Seth. The voice caught me off guard. Seth had resigned, taking full responsibility for everything, and we hadn't spoken since. My father's condition has stabilized. He's staying at a hospital run by an old family friend. If you're willing, I'd like him to meet the two of you, I answered without hesitation. After checking the hospital's location, Diane and I made plans to go. Are you sure about this? Yes. I'd like to hear what Mr. Coleman's father has to say properly. Besides, my father asked me to send his regards as well. Diane's voice was calm and kind. When we arrived at the hospital, Seth was already waiting. He had lost a significant amount of weight, and the dark circles under his eyes made him look like a completely different person from just a few months ago. Sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for coming. Seth bowed deeply. There wasn't even a trace of the arrogance he once carried. He had clearly spent this time facing his past mistakes while caring for his father. At the nurse's station, one of the staff quietly spoke to us. Seth came to the hospital every single day, staying late into the night by his father's side. They said sometimes he would sit holding his father's hand, whispering, "I'm sorry," again and again. When we entered the hospital room, Seth's father was lying in bed, connected to an IV drip. Seth quietly adjusted his father's pillow and carefully pulled the blanket over him. There was no trace of the roughness he once carried. "You must be Ralph and Aaron's daughter. I'm sorry you have to see me like this." His voice was weak, but filled with sincerity. It was my cowardice not telling my son the truth. That's what led to all of this. I should have told him that Aaron took the fall for my crimes. Instead, I kept writing letters because I didn't have the strength to face it. With tears in his eyes, he turned to Seth. "My son, I'm sorry for burdening you with resentment, for dragging Ralph and Diane into this. It's my fault." Seth took his father's hand. "It's okay. I was the one who let myself be consumed by hatred. I never tried to understand you or Aaron. I just ran ahead, blind to everything that really mattered." Regret filled his eyes with a sincerity that could not be faked. Beside him, his father slowly closed his eyes. "I know I can't undo what I've done, but please, let me at least apologize to you both." Seth stood up slowly and bowed deeply. "For everything, every single thing I've done, I'm truly sorry." Diane stepped closer and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Seth, please lift your head." "No, Please keep taking care of your father." Those kind words made Seth's shoulders tremble. "Thank you." His reply came in a tearful voice. There was no longer any trace of hatred on his face. All that remained was the pure, honest look of a son caring for his father. 6 months later, the company had made an astonishing recovery. The atmosphere had changed completely. Employees spoke their minds, and discussions became lively and open. Sales performance was steadily rising. Most importantly, smiles had returned to people's faces. "Mr. King." One day, Diane came running in, smiling brightly. "We've just been selected for an award by the Asia Aviation Federation. Congratulations. You really are incredible, Diane." She shook her head, a little embarrassed. "No, it's not just me. This is something we all achieved together." Her words filled me with warmth. The former company heiress had now become a beloved core member of the team. "By the way, on our next day off, I think it's time I officially visited your family." "What?" "I mean, I should ask for their blessing. For us." Her cheeks turned a soft shade of pink. "Are you proposing?" "Well, maybe not yet, but soon." I felt myself blushing as the words slipped out. But Diane simply smiled with joy. "Ralph, stay by my side. Always. I promise." Reuniting with Diane had taught me many things. The success of the company and status are certainly important. But there are things far more important than success. Seth had lost his way, consumed by hatred, forgetting what it meant to be human. And I too had spent so long chasing nothing but achievement. Diane was the one who reminded us both. No one can live alone. By caring for someone and being cared for in return. It is through those warm, human bonds that we find true strength. Even when she lost her company, Diane kept moving forward. Because she had the strength of family behind her. And now, she had new people standing by her side as well. Outside the window, the wind carried the scent of a new season. There would surely be more challenges ahead, but I would never again lose my way. I would protect the people I care about, walk beside them, and turn this company into something we could all be proud of. I vowed to do that once more with all my heart.